All right, welcome back to another fantasy football video. We have our first guest in the Mike Too Nice history, I believe. It's Mr. Andrew here. This guy runs a very prestigious Instagram account for the New York Yankees. If you're a fan, give him a follow. Bronx Bombers with 2 S's at the end, no underscore. Correct.
Yep. I'm excited to be here, Mike. Thank you for inviting me. Now, I'm an Eagles fan, Giants fan, so take it easy on me. There are going to be 2 players on here that you guys might not like, but I do have good evidence, so take it easy.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, I forgot about the other guy. Yeah. But yeah, leave in the comments your bold predictions for this year. This is the last fantasy football video, so hopefully you enjoy. We have a live audience back here as well. Too much going on right now. But hopefully we can get through this.
All right, so first up on the board, I got Philadelphia Eagles wide receiver Jalen Reagor. My prediction for him is he's going to have an 1,000-yard season. I don't think this is too out of the box because I think on Yahoo he's projected around 930 yards this year. But, I mean, this guy slept on hard. Okay, draft night, everybody was just saying how he was the short guy from TCU that was drafted after Justin Jefferson. Well, I think it's going to be a lot different.
I thought it was before Jefferson, no? Or no?
You're right. It was before Jefferson. He was drafted over Justin Jefferson, which a lot of Philadelphia Eagles fans were mad about. I mean, later in the draft, they drafted Jalen Hurts. I wasn't happy about that either. But, look, the current wide receiver situation for the Eagles is just, it gives him a lot of time to just develop and be really, really good on the outside. You got Alshon Jeffrey, who's not going to start off the season. You got Marquise Goodwin, who's not going to play at all because of him opting out for COVID. Mm-hmm. So with Deshaun Jackson on the outside and him on the outside, the best cornerbacks that they're going to be facing are going to be on Deshaun Jackson, not on Jalen Reagor. So I think that gives Jalen a really, really good chance to develop different sorts of routes down the field, whether that's screen passes, whether that's deep routes, whether that's slants across the field. I think you're really going to see that a lot. I've seen videos with Carson Wentz and Jalen Reagor. They really have a good connection together, and I think it's going to be a very explosive pairing this year.
Yeah, I'm looking now. Their depth chart is kind of ugly. Greg Ward, who was all right last year. Deontay Burnett, I think that's Sam Darnold's old friend at USC.
Yeah.
Arcega-Whiteside, am I saying it right?
Yep.
Arcega?
Yeah,
but
Arcega.
there's really not much going on, so I can agree with this one. All right, my first one is Dalvin Cook finishes outside the top 15 in running backs in 2020. So, if you watched my videos last year, I was all in on Dalvin Cook. Came off the hamstring, the ACL, and I was like, all right, it's a buy low. He's a round 2 pick. I like that they had Kevin Stefanski there. They ran the ball a ton. He was really effective. You missed some games at the end of the year, but if you got in the playoffs and Cook was on your team, he was probably a big reason for it. So the reasons here are the contract issue, the injuries he's had in the past, and the offensive coordinator change. So for Cook's contract situation, you can tell he's definitely not too happy about not getting paid. He wants that long-term deal. And I feel like this could be just my interpretation of the situation, but I feel like if he nicks himself up during the season, he's not going to rush himself back to play. He's a guy who wants the money. He definitely, I feel like if he's got some kind of bruise or something, he might milk it and be like, you know what, I'll see you guys in a couple weeks. I feel like he's going to sit out. If any tiny thing happens to him, there's that concern because he wants to get paid, obviously. Mm-hmm. Now you talk about the injuries. He tore his ACL back in 2017 when he was a rookie, missed 12 games. 2018, hamstring issues, in and out of the lineup. That was not good, obviously. And then last year missed the final few games of the year with some type of clavicle injury. Do you know where that is or no?
I have no clue. I only know that because of Tony Romo.
That might be a chest injury or something, shoulder, chest, but either way, he was out of the lineup. That's not good. And then even in last year, as I said, clavicle injury, missed 2 games. So he hasn't been able to make it through a full season yet. Definitely a concern. And this guy right now is going as the running back number 6 off the board, which is in every draft basically, unless you're like a 4-team league, a first-round pick. So I don't want to take him in the first round. If you can get Dalvin Cook in the second round, I say why not? But not in the first round for me. Now they move on from Kevin Stefanski. He goes to the Browns. They ran the ball a lot last year. I know their offensive line isn't the greatest, but they had that great zone run scheme. It worked out perfectly. So Stefanski wanted to establish the run. Now they bring in Gary Kubiak, who's had some good success in the past with running backs. I think he was back when Arian Foster was tearing it up with the Texans. He was there as well. But it is a new offensive coordinator. Some things might change and stuff. And also, Alexander Madison's in year 2. He was pretty effective last year as well. So you got to watch out for him. I'm definitely avoiding Cook because of the injuries mainly and also that contract situation and the new offensive coordinator as well.
I think you nailed that because I think he's a really good short-term player. Yeah. First 3 weeks of the season, they have obviously Justin Jefferson, who I just talked about last time. The first 3 weeks of the season, Justin Jefferson's not really going to be anything special, so I think they might go to the run more often. But, as time goes on, I think they're going to develop Justin Jefferson, get more comfortable with him, and then it's going to be Thielen and Jefferson all day long.
All right, so time for Andrew's number 2 bold prediction.
So, number 2, I know it's a guy that me and you both really, really like. In your fantasy strategy, you described him. I'm going to go with Jonnu Smith here. I think he's going to finish as the tight end number 10 in fantasy football. That's a huge jump from where he's placed right now. Delaney Walker's not there anymore, and I think he fits perfectly with Tannehill. Just like Reagor, he's not going to be the guy that attracts the top defenders on the field. They're going to go to A.J. Brown. I think that's going to leave plenty of time for him to develop and get open down the field, whether it's down the field, slants, middle of the field, whatever it is. He's a big guy. He's not that big of a guy. He's 6'3", 250, but he can run a 4.6.
Crazy,
so he's pretty fast. Yeah, yes. He's pretty fast. He can go up and catch the ball in the end zone. He's a very big threat in the red zone. So I just think his frame, his build, it's just due to fit Tannehill perfectly, and he's going to have a great year.
Yeah, if you watch my video, a couple videos back, I think, I was definitely hyping Jonnu Smith. We're definitely not the only people. A lot of people that play fantasy are in love with this guy. There's a lot of good tight ends this year, honestly. We didn't include this one, but even Austin Hooper, I didn't realize is going so late for the Browns. And, I don't really trust Njoku that much. They paid Hooper, so that's another guy to keep in your mind as well. But definitely on board with Jonnu Smith this year. All right, my second one is Phillip Lindsay outscores his new teammate, Melvin Gordon, in 2020. I think we agree on this one, right? Or somewhat.
I'm not a fan of Melvin.
Okay, I don't think anyone likes Melvin Gordon. It's funny to me that he's like the 29th overall player because everyone I talk to are like, I don't like Melvin Gordon this year. So kind of interesting. So I went over in another video, the overvalued one, how I don't really like Melvin Gordon. He's overhyped in my mind, injuries in the past, and he's a guy that's definitely reliant on volume. Like if the Chargers didn't give him a crazy amount of volume, he wouldn't really be that effective in fantasy football world, I should say, So he was great that year that Danny Woodhead got hurt. He was the only guy left. Of course, he's going to put up a lot of points. So last season, Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler, they coexisted, and they were both fantasy relevant last year. And I think for Denver, Phillip Lindsay can be that guy. He's not as good as Austin Eckler, in my opinion, but they can play similar roles here. So Lindsay's had 35 catches in each of his first 2 seasons, 70 total in 2 years, and I think is more of a better hybrid back than Melvin Gordon is. Now, I know Gordon can catch the ball. That's not what I'm saying, but you're talking about a guy that can do more, just catching the ball and even running between the tackles. He's very underrated. I think Lindsay can do both. And you know what? Gordon, he has had 2 seasons of over 50 catches, but that was a bunch of targets. I think he had 83 targets one year. Lindsay has not seen the target share that Melvin Gordon has in the passing game. So it really depends on where they're drafted. So right now, Gordon is the 17th running back off the board. Way too high for me, in my opinion. And Phillip Lindsay is number 37. That's a running back, technically 3, right? No, 4, because you're outside the top 36. So he is a high-end running back 4, which to me is crazy, especially if you're in a PPR league. I'd take him over a lot of people, in my opinion. I take him and James White all the time. They're right near each other. So you can literally get this guy 4 or 5 rounds later, and I expect similar production, if not better, for Phillip Lindsay. So I could be wrong about this one. I just like him more as the player. I don't trust Melvin Gordon. I drafted him 2 years ago. The guy was phenomenal, got hurt, and I'm like, you know what? I should have known this before when I drafted him. So I think Lindsay will be on the field in 2-minute drills. That definitely helps him as well. He'll get the good PPR numbers, and I'm just very excited for him this year, coming off back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, undrafted guy, good story. Also playing for a contract pretty soon, I believe. I think next year is his last year on that rookie deal. Yeah. So keep that in mind as well. I like Phillip Lindsay a lot this year.
I just picture Melvin Gordon as a very selfish player. Yeah. I feel like him and Phillip Lindsay don't go together. Austin Eckler was incredible every time Melvin Gordon went out, and that's why I think Melvin Gordon asked for the money that he did and held out, because he wanted to make sure that the Chargers viewed him as their number 1 option. So I think when you go in a room where you have an up-and-coming player, a young player that's a Pro Bowler, has been a Pro Bowler, I think when you start to share reps, I think you're going to eventually see Melvin Gordon start to get jealous. Broncos are going to start to see that, and I think Phillip Lindsay molds into the starting running back by midseason or so.
I agree. And it's a shame because I love the Broncos offseason, and then when they signed Melvin Gordon,
it kind of ruined it.
What are we doing here, Yeah. But, all right, so I guess we could jump into it, right? Your number 3, got it?
My number 3 is running back Jonathan Taylor, and a lot of people let this guy drop. For some reason, I don't know why that happens. Coming out of college, Jonathan Taylor was arguably the best running back in college football. That was mainly because of his red zone build. He's great in the red zone, and his offensive line. Well, when he moves to the Colts, he doesn't lose a single step with that. The Colts had the 3rd best offensive line last year. Quentin Nelson and Ryan Keller are really going to hold that front and center again. He's going to be a huge red zone threat. And I think he's just going to put up the most rushing touchdowns in the NFL.
Yeah.
I think he's going to put up 6 points at least most weeks, if not all of the weeks, just by touchdowns. I really like the build of the offensive line. I think he fits perfectly with the Colts. And I think by drafting Jonathan Taylor in the second round kind of tells a Marlon Mack or a Nyheim Hines that they're not really what they want in their future. And I saw a Marlon Mack quote the other day. He said that he loved watching Jonathan Taylor, when he was getting water or whatever, when he was getting the reps. So I think that almost shows you that it's a guy talking about him almost already losing the starting position before the season even starts.
Yeah.
So I don't even think that's too bold, most rushing touchdowns. Maybe it is because he's a rookie, but I think that's something you could see happen.
Yeah, last year I predicted Nick Chubb to have the most touchdowns. It didn't go so well, but I think Jonathan Taylor's in a much better situation, as you said.
Yeah.
I think Pro Football Focus, which some people hate, but they ranked the Colts offensive line number 1. They had Phillip Rivers, who's definitely had some great running backs throughout his career. LaDainian Tomlinson at one point led the league in touchdowns with Phillip Rivers. Long time ago, but still it happened. So, I'm pretty excited about Taylor. I think he's more of a 4th-round pick now, which is kind of high.
Yeah.
And maybe for a couple weeks more, the Max sees more work. I personally think it's Taylor out the gate. They took him in the 2nd round, so I think right out of the gate he'll get majority of the carries, in my opinion. All right, my third one, Preston Williams, wide receiver for the Dolphins, is a top 30 wide receiver in 2020, which means I think he'll double where he's being drafted because right now he is the number 57 wide receiver off the board. So it was announced a couple weeks ago when people were doing the COVID opt-outs that Allen Hurns and Albert Wilson are not there. So I think Allen Hurns more of an outside guy. Wilson's more of a slot guy. That doesn't affect him as much. But not having Hurns, definitely good news from Mike Williams. So right there, there's just basically 3 options in this offense in the passing game. You have Devontae Parker, who I'm not too high on based on how high he's going in drafts.
Fair.
Mike Gesicki, who you either love him or you hate him, I feel like, with Gesicki. I mean, I don't even know what to feel about him, honestly. But he was all right last year. And really outside of that, there's no Dolphins receivers. Now, there was some bad news this morning, which definitely affects him about Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think his mother passed away, which is terrible, but I think he might not be there the first few weeks, and maybe Tua is thrown in there. Josh Rosen might be in there. But I don't know. I would much rather have Ryan Fitzpatrick, honestly, for the outside receivers because he's the type of quarterback that just says throw it and go get it. Williams is 6'5", 220. He's entering year 2 at 23 years old. Usually year 3 is the breakout for a wide receiver, but there's such limited competition for targets that I feel like it could happen this year. So it all depends on health, but if he plays 14 to 16 games this year, I can see around 60 to 70 catches, 800 to 1,000 yards, 6 to 8 touchdowns. He definitely has the frame and ability for it, in my opinion, which would definitely put him in that high-end wide receiver 3, even low-end number 2 for wide receivers. So as I said, I want Ryan Fitzpatrick. Might not happen now because of the unfortunate news, but even if it's Tua, if it's Josh Rosen, I'm fine with it. I think Rosen actually last year, because of course I watched him in the preseason, had a decent connection with Preston Williams. I think they were both, it was Rosen's first year there. Williams was undrafted, so I think mostly Rosen had a connection with him. So maybe that's a good thing as well. I know a lot of... Do you like Tua or no? I don't know if you're a Tua guy.
I'm more of a Tua guy than I'm a Joe Burrow guy. Okay. I'm just going to throw that out there. I know you're very high on Joe Burrow. I love Tua more. Yeah.
Hot take, okay.
Yeah.
But no, I'm all in on Preston Williams. You can get him super late in drafts too. He's one of those guys that can just completely explode and be maybe a wide receiver too. You never know, especially if Devontae Parker gets hurt. And we know he's not the most durable guy out there.
The only concern for me that I have with a guy like Preston Williams is when Tua comes in eventually during the season, I don't see the Dolphins being up in many games. They're going to be behind in many games. I think with a rookie like that, you might see him try and throw the ball up to Devontae Parker more just to get down the field. Yeah. But I think 2 or 3 weeks into the season with Tua going, I think he could develop a really nice connection with Preston Williams.
I hope so, because he's going to be on a lot of my teams this year for sure. Yeah. Do you want to jump in the 4? Are we ready?
Yeah, I'll jump in the 4 because I know I'm going to get smashed on this one in the comments, but I think Carson Wentz will be a top 5 fantasy quarterback. Mainly 5. I don't think he'll be 4, 3, 2, or 1. Too many talented quarterbacks, but Carson Wentz finished as the 9th best fantasy quarterback last year, and look at the supporting cast he had. He didn't have Deshaun Jackson for a full season. I think he had him for 2 out of the 16 games the entire season. He didn't have a guy like Jalen Reagor. He didn't have Alshon Jeffrey. He's not going to have him this year. But it just goes to show he had Greg Ward, like you said, Deontay Burnett. I think he had Robert, I forget the last name.
Robert somebody.
Robert somebody. Yeah, exactly. Robert Davis. That's who it was, Robert Davis.
If you look at the...
Yeah, exactly. If you look at the supporting cast that he had last year, he still threw 27 touchdowns, 7 picks. I think he gets into the 30-35 range this year. I also think he steps up with his running game. I think he wants to prove that he's not injury prone, and I think he really, really tries to get the running game going. I think what you might see with non-physical running backs like Jordan Howard that they had last year, you have Boston Scott, you have Miles Sanders. I think on the 1 or 2 yard line, you might try and see them go QB sneak a lot more this year. So that's rushing touchdowns, that's more rushing points. Again, I know you guys are going to hate me for this, but I think you got Ertz, you got Goddard, probably the best tight end duo in the NFL. Maybe behind O.J. Howard and Rob Gronkowski, depending on how Rob performs this season.
I think you guys have it.
We might.
Yeah.
I like both of them too. I think they're middle of the field threats. When Deshaun Jackson and Reagor aren't working down the field, you always have them to go to, which is really all he had last year, which was the problem. So I think he finishes as a top 5 fantasy quarterback this year.
All right, I need to ask you this because I'm looking at the list right now. So you think he's going to finish inside of Mahomes, Jackson, Russell Wilson, Dak, Kyler, and Deshaun Watson?
I do. I think Kyler finishes 6th. I think the top 4 is going to be this isn't in any specific order. I think it's going to be Mahomes, Lamar, Russell, and Deshaun Watson.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
I mean, look, obviously for a Giant fan, I hope you're wrong. I like Wentz from a talent standpoint. I think if injuries were turned off, I think this guy is one of the better quarterbacks in the league. I just don't trust the durability. So if he does run more, you brought up a great point about the goal line back now, Jordan Howard being gone. That is a great point. You could throw a lot of swing passes to Miles Sanders. Boston Scott definitely ups his fantasy value again. So I do like this pick. It could happen. If you played 16 games, I definitely could see it. And if you don't get this right, we'll revisit it in the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They'll be painting me on Instagram.
All right, let's see if we're rolling here. We're still rolling, so let's go with it. I think my number 4 is Matthew Stafford, so a different quarterback here, is a top 8 quarterback in 2020. So right now he's a quarterback 14 according to the fantasy football calculator. So really, health hasn't been on Stafford's side the past 2 years. We know that. I think it's back-to-back back injuries. Back-to-back back injuries. I got that. A lot of backs, but I got it right.
A lot of backs.
But basically last year, he was off to a really good start. I think Stafford was the quarterback 6 last year when he got hurt in week 9. So he was having a great year. I know, of course, the injury was terrible for him, and then they brought in Jeff Driscoll and whoever the hell. Who was the guy that started on Thanksgiving for them?
No clue.
David Blau?
All I know is I benched Kenny Galladay that day, and he put on a show.
I think he scored a touchdown in the first part.
Yeah, he did. He really did. It was like a 7-yard touchdown.
But Stafford is at camp looking healthy. I've seen a few videos of him just launching balls, him and his great arm. He looked really awesome there. Now, their offensive coordinator, Darrell Bevel, who I think was hired last year, prefers to run the ball. But the Lions, not really a good team. They're going to be down a lot, forced to pass the ball. And I like the weapons he has a lot. You're talking about Kenny Galladay, who we just talked about, Marvin Jones, who I think is a very undervalued guy this year. I like him a lot. And T.J. Hawkinson, who I think is still kind of recovering from that ankle injury, whatever it was. He might not be 100%, but even T.J. Hawkinson at 90% is fine with me. Great tight end. The slot guy, Danny Amendola, if he plays a full 16, doubt it, but still, he's there. So they have some good options there for sure. And as I said, I think the top 6 is going to be Mahomes, Lamar, Russell, Murray, and Prescott, and Watson. So that leaves 7 and 8 open. We can put Wentz at 7, Stafford at 8. I think Stafford squeaks into that top 8. And also, I talked about the offense coordinator a lot, not wanting to pass the ball too much. He was basically on pace for 582 passing attempts last year, which would have put him at 8th in the NFL behind Phillip Rivers. So I'm not too concerned about it. I know they want to run the ball. I know they got DeAndre Swift in the draft. They have Kerryon Johnson. They have some other Johnson. I forget their other running back, but not important. But yeah, they want to run the ball. I just don't think they have the team to do it. They'll be passing a lot, and Stafford, I think, is going to have a great year as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah. I have no disagreements with this one whatsoever.
Awesome.
I think an experienced T.J. Hawkinson, first year under the belt, I think that is huge for a guy like Stafford. Look out for Hawkinson this year. I think he's going to get a lot of targets.
Nice. All right. We'll let you finish off number 5, right?
Yes. Number 5 is, again, a guy that's very, very high on the fantasy charts. Running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We're both very high on him. Sadly, I got the 7th pick in our fantasy football draft tonight, so I'm not going to be able to draft him. But I think he's going to have the 3rd most total yards in the NFL. I think the only 2 people in front of him are the obvious ones, Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley. I don't think this one's too bold. I think he's probably one of the better pass-catching backs in the league. I think he's great with the run, and he has Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback, who we saw with Kareem Hunt when he was there. He threw it a lot to Kareem Hunt. Now, Kareem Hunt wasn't the best pass-catching running back. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a ton better, so I think you can see Patrick Mahomes trust him a lot more. And Andy Reid said that his tape was better than Brian Westbrook. If that's not the most encouraging thing you've ever heard, Brian Westbrook was probably the 2nd best running back Andy Reid has had behind LaShawn McCoy when he was in his prime. That's just encouraging. A running back straight out of college. He was great with Joe Burrow. He went from the best quarterback in college football to the best quarterback in the NFL. I think he's going to be fantastic.
I agree, 100%. I mean, I wanted Clyde really badly. We do have a draft later tonight.
Yeah.
I basically made a trade to move up to the 3 pick, and now my brother, we basically made a deal where he's going to get Clyde at number 5, unless he's not taking number 4. So I really wanted him. Can't get him in this league, but super high on him this year. Perfect situation. Loved him in college. I didn't know anything about him because, as I said, I don't watch too much college football. But, of course, when LSU's on, I watch him. I go, who the hell is this running back for LSU? He was so good. Like, he literally reminded me of a better version of C.J. Anderson. Like, they look the same, had the same number, and I'm like, this guy's just amazing balance. He caught like 50 passes or something in college football, which is insane.
Yeah.
So as a receiving back, he'll get the goal line work. His backup is Darrell Williams and DeAndre Washington. Nothing to worry about, in my opinion. You know, so Andy Reid has definitely employed a lot of great running backs, and you know his fantasy history go back to Brian Westbrook, LaShawn McCoy, Kareem Hunt, as we talked about. So a bunch of even Damian Williams last year was not too bad either. So definitely a good pick in my opinion.
Yeah.
My last one. I didn't put him in my my first video, which was like the breakout players or the must-own players, and I regret it. But I have DJ Chark finishing as a top 10 receiver in 2020. So Chark right now is the wide receiver 23.
Whoa.
And I think last year he finished as, I wrote it down, I think it was wide receiver 16, and now he's at 23. So I don't know why we're putting him back as compared to what he finished at last year. But basically, there was an interview. I forget if it was Minshew or Chark who said it, but they basically said they had no training camp or preseason reps together. Like, once Minshew was thrown in there, that was the first time Chark and Minshew were playing on the field together.
Phenomenal.
And they were great.
Yeah.
So now they have that built-in chemistry. Look what they did last year. He had over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, 73 catches. You know, so that's great. Imagine what they can do with some chemistry. Now, the competition there isn't great. They have like Chris Conley. They have Laviska Shenault. I don't know if he's going to get on the field anytime soon. Yeah. They don't have the greatest competition there for targets.
They still got D.D. Westbrook over there?
D.D. Westbrook, Keelan Cole. But DJ Chark, we know, is their number one. You know what I mean? So we have that. Cole's like a wide receiver 1 type build. He's 6'4", 200 pounds, really explosive, really good route runner in my opinion. So I think people are kind of underrating Gardner Minshew. People think he's more of like a social media act and not really a good quarterback. But I think Gardner Minshew is actually not that bad. He proved last year he's a decent starter. Now, I don't know if he'll be the guy there for 10 years, but Gardner Minshew proved that he can play in this league for sure. So definitely give them the chemistry, give him more time to work. I like him a lot this year. Now, last year, some advanced analytics or stats, however you want to say.
Love my advanced analytics.
When a Jacksonville quarterback was targeting Chark last year, they had a 104.8 rating, and his average depth of target was 11.5 yards. That's a very good combination right there, so I love seeing that for sure. And as I said, the competition there isn't great. Conley, Shenault, and they had, who's the other guy? Keelan Cole, D.D. Westbrook. Nothing great there. Last year, he had 118 targets. I think this year we're looking at above 140, hopefully. And with those type of targets, I think this guy can actually be maybe a top 5 wide receiver. I'm going to say top 10 to be modest here. But he's going to break out, in my opinion, if he plays a full season.
I have nothing to say about this. I could not agree more. I think I got laughed at last night. I also had another draft with a couple other friends. I got laughed at because I did stretch taking
DJ?
Yes, DJ Chark. I took him a little early, but that was because I knew I wasn't going to get him with my next pick. I was laughed at, but hey, I think I'm going to have the last laugh this season. And yeah, I think DJ Chark's going to be phenomenal.
The funny thing is he's probably not your favorite DJ.
No, he's not.
LeMahieu's
my favorite DJ. Even though he had bases loaded today and he almost screwed it up. I don't want to get into too much.
Thanks, Dylan Betances.
Yeah.
But yeah, once again, follow him on Instagram if you made it this far. Bronx Bombers, 2 S's. 2 S's.
DM me. If you found me from this video, DM me. I'll follow you back.
Exactly.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah.
All right, we hope you enjoyed this. Once again, leave in the comments your bold predictions this year. This is one of my favorite fantasy videos to do.
Yeah.
We might not be right on all of them, but still, it's a fun concept. I enjoy it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you next time.